A man is handing out water bottles to exhausted volunteers. He wraps his arms around Sydney's sobbing mother, tells her it's going to be okay. He spends 2 days showing up, searching, comforting, grieving right alongside the people who love her most. He already knows she is never coming home. He knows because he buried her himself. August 19, 2020, Jackson County, Arkansas. A 25-year-old nurse named Sydney Sutherland steps out of her front door for an afternoon run on a road she has traveled 100 times before. Familiar ground. A routine she knows by heart. She never comes back. For 2 days her family searches. Her community shows up, and the man who took her life stands right in the middle of all of it. Looking them in the eyes, holding their hands, playing the role of a concerned neighbor so convincingly that nobody suspects a thing. Until the truth comes out, and when it does, it will shake this small Arkansas town to its core. Before we go any further, what you are about to hear is real. This is not a fictional story. This is not a dramatization. This is the true account of a real woman whose life was taken from her in the most violating and devastating way imaginable. This video contains details of abduction, sexual assault, and murder. If any of those topics are sensitive for you personally, please take care of yourself first. For everyone staying with us, this story will be told the way Sydney Sutherland deserves, with honesty, with facts, and with the dignity that she and her family are owed. Let's get into it.
COVID-19, the disease that defined our lives in 2020.
2020 is now the deadliest year in U.S. history.
Since late March, the U.S. has led the world with the most cases and the most deaths, now at more than 334,000.
August 2020. The entire world is holding its breath. A global pandemic has people locked inside their homes. Businesses shuttered, streets emptied out, and an invisible fear hanging over everything. It is the kind of year that makes people cling even tighter to the familiar, to routine, to the places and people that feel safe. In Jackson County, Arkansas, life has always moved to its own quiet rhythm, nestled in the northeast corner of the state. This is farming country. Deep and rooted, the kind of land that has been worked by the same families for generations. Flat open fields stretch as far as the eye can see. Soybeans and rice growing under a wide Arkansas sky. Quiet county roads cutting through land that feels as still and unhurried as the people who live on it. With just under 17,000 residents spread across 600 square miles. Everybody here knows everybody. You recognize faces at the gas station. You know which truck belongs to which family just by the sound of the engine. You wave at strangers because out here, there are no strangers. It is the kind of place where a young woman feels completely safe stepping outside for an afternoon run, where lacing up your shoes and hitting a familiar road feels like the most ordinary thing in the world. And that is exactly what makes what happened in the summer of 2020 so hard to process. Because the danger that came for Sydney Sutherland did not come from a stranger. It came from someone who already knew her name. Before we go further, let us know where you are watching from and subscribe to this channel for more true crime stories like this one. Sydney Claire Sutherland grew up in Tuckerman, Arkansas, a town so small that your entire childhood happens within the same few streets. The same faces at the grocery store. The same teachers from kindergarten through senior year. The kind of place where your graduating class has fewer than 50 people in it, and somehow that feels like exactly enough. Sydney was one of those 50. She grew up in the kind of community where people look out for each other without being asked. Where showing up for your neighbor is not something you think about. It is just something you do. And from early on, that spirit lived in Sydney. She chose nursing. Think about that for a moment. Out of everything she could have done with her life, Sydney chose a career that puts you in a room with people on the absolute worst days of their existence. When they are scared, when they are in pain, when they need someone steady and kind of remind them that they are not alone. That is not a career choice. That is a character statement. At just 25 years old, she was already living the life she had built for herself. Working as a nurse, staying close to home, close to her family, close to the community that raised her. She was not chasing some far-off dream in a big city. She was exactly where she wanted to be, doing exactly what she set out to do, and the people around her felt that every single day, running was her thing, not for anyone else, not for social media, just for her. It was her quiet time, her reset, her way of moving through the world on her own terms. Those roads around Newport and Grubbs were not just running routes to Sydney. They were hers, familiar and safe and peaceful in the way that only a place you truly know can feel. She had run them so many times she probably knew every crack in the asphalt, every bend, every stretch of open sky. The people who loved Sydney have never struggled to find the words to describe her. If anything, the words come too fast and feel too small for who she actually was. One of her closest friends said something that has stayed with everyone who heard it. Sydney was probably the best part of what every human wants to be. Another friend made a point of saying something that mattered deeply. I don't want anyone to think Sydney's life was a tragedy. Sydney's life was beautiful. She was a daughter, a friend, a nurse, a runner, a young woman with a whole life stretched out ahead of her, full of purpose and warmth and the kind of quiet impact that does not make headlines but changes the people around you forever. She was 25 years old, and her favorite color was pink. Remember that, because by the end of the story, that detail is going to mean everything. Quake Llewellyn was 28 years old. He grew up in the same small world as Sydney, same community, same tight circle, same tiny Tuckerman High School where a graduating class of fewer than 50 means you do not just recognize someone in the hallway. You know their family, you know their story, you know their face well enough to pick it out of a crowd 10 years later. Sydney and Llewellyn were not strangers. They were connected on social media the way people from small towns always stay connected. Not close necessarily, but linked. A quiet digital thread tied to a shared past. The kind of casual online friendship that means nothing until suddenly it means everything. To everyone around him, Llewellyn looked like a man who had his life together. He came from a prominent farming family in the area. Well-known, well-established. The kind of family that has deep roots in a community like Jackson County. He was married. He had a life that, from the outside, looked completely ordinary. Nothing about Quake Llewellyn raised any flags, but at some point before August 19, 2020, he did something small and quiet that no one noticed at the time. He unfriended Sydney on social media. No explanation. No falling out that anyone knew about. Just a silent digital disconnection that came and went without anyone giving it a second thought. Investigators would later look at that moment very carefully, because sometimes the smallest things are the ones that reveal the most. At the time, though, nobody noticed, and Sydney kept running her roads. Wednesday, August 19th, 2020. It is a warm afternoon in Jackson County. The kind of summer day that feels completely unremarkable. The kind of day you would never remember if nothing happened. Sydney laces up her shoes. She heads out for her regular run along Highway 18, the stretch of road between Newport and Grubbs that she knows like the back of her hand. This is not a new route. This is not an adventure. This is just Tuesday, except it is Wednesday, and it is routine, and it is safe, because it has always been safe. Around 3 p.m., a driver passing through the area spots her jogging along County Road 41. They see her. They drive past. They think nothing of it. That is the last confirmed sighting of Sydney Sutherland alive. Within 2 hours, her family knows something is wrong. Not suspects, not wonders, knows, because Sydney was that kind of person. The kind whose absence is felt immediately. The kind who does not just disappear without a word. When she did not come home on time, the people who loved her did not sit and wait. They called police. They got on the phone. They started organizing a search before the sun went down. Her community responded the same way. By the following day, hundreds of volunteers flood the area. Neighbors, strangers, people who had never met Sydney but showed up anyway because that is what you do in a place like Jackson County. They search fields. They walk roads. They call her name. Sydney's iPhone is recovered about 1.3 miles from her home near Highway 67. Then a pair of broken sunglasses linked to Sydney turns up inside a barn a few hundred yards away. The pieces are scattered, disconnected, and deeply unsettling. Her phone is here. Her sunglasses are there. But Sydney is nowhere, and moving through that crowd of worried volunteers, handing out water, wrapping his arms around her grieving family, looking every bit as concerned as everyone else, is Quake Llewellyn, searching alongside the people who love her most, comforting the mother of the woman he killed. He had already buried her. He knew exactly where she was, and he stood there anyway.
Search for a missing Jackson County woman involving multiple law enforcement agencies now, and it continues. 25-year-old Sydney Sutherland was last seen jogging off Highway 18. Here's her photograph. She was jogging between Newport and Grubbs. Claire Christ has been in Jackson County all day. She's joining us now with the latest on the search efforts there. Claire, what do we know about the search? How's it going? Has it turned up anything?
Yeah, Bob, County Road 41 is the last place Sydney Sutherland was seen. This is actually a typical jogging route for her. Now it's filled, you can see, filled with people driving up and down, searching, trying to bring her back home safe. So this area behind me is actually the staging area for the search. Sheriff Lucas says there are no solid leads at this time. So we ask if you know anything or if you have seen her or even think that you have seen her to please call the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. Reporting live in Jackson County.
From the very beginning, investigators have a name: Quake Llewellyn. He was the last known person to report seeing Sydney alive, and not a single other witness placed her anywhere after that moment. In a case with that kind of vacuum, you start where the trail ends, and the trail ended with him. Llewellyn agrees to let detectives search his phone. It is the kind of decision that probably felt calculated in the moment. A show of cooperation from a man positioning himself as helpful, as concerned, as just another member of the community trying to find a missing woman. It is the worst decision he ever made. Because on that phone, investigators find a location tracking app. These apps are common, millions of families use them. Parents tracking their kids, couples checking in on each other. The kind of everyday technology that most people never think twice about. You open the app. You see a dot on a map. You know where your person is. On August 19, 2020, that dot placed Quake Llewellyn 3 yards from the crime scene. At the exact moment Sydney Sutherland vanished. 3 yards. That is not a coincidence. That is a confession written in data. But investigators do not stop there. Sydney's own phone records become a critical piece of the puzzle. Detectives use them to track her movements during the abduction, building a timeline, reconstructing what happened and when, turning fragments of digital information into a detailed picture of her final hours. Then something happens that nobody expects. Llewellyn's own mother picks up the phone and calls law enforcement. She has surveillance footage from her property, recorded the day Sydney disappeared, and she tells investigators they need to see it. Let that sit for a moment. His own mother. The footage shows Llewellyn that day wearing a distinctive pair of tannish brown shoes. Casual, recognizable, the kind of shoes that leave a very specific print. Investigators believe those prints match footprints found directly on top of and around a freshly dug grave. Then Llewellyn's wife steps forward. She has already filed for divorce by this point, and when detectives sit down with her to review the surveillance footage, she points out something that stops the room. A dent on Llewellyn's truck. A fresh dent. One that was not there before August 19th. Police obtain the truck and examine it closely. They find blood on the tailgate. Social media records obtained through a warrant fill in one more piece, revealing the exact date that Llewellyn quietly removed Sydney from his friends list. That small silent action that nobody noticed, now sitting in an evidence file with a timestamp attached to it. The walls are closing in from every direction. Digital data, surveillance footage, physical evidence, and his own family leading investigators straight to the truth. Faced with all of it, Llewellyn talks. He tells Arkansas State Police investigators exactly what happened on County Road 41 that Wednesday afternoon. He saw Sydney running. He turned his truck around. He struck her with his vehicle. He loaded her into the truck, drove her to a nearby field, and sexually assaulted her. Then he took a shovel, and he buried her. Using the cell phone data, investigators pinpoint the location. 2 days after Sydney Sutherland left her front door for an afternoon run, she is found The state medical examiner confirms what the evidence already told them. Her death was a homicide, caused by multiple blunt force injuries. She was 25 years old, and she never made it home.
Tonight, a heartbreaking ending for a search for a missing Jackson County woman. The Jackson County Sheriff confirming the body of 25-year-old Sydney Sutherland has been found.
The body of Sydney Sutherland was found buried in a shallow hole in a field near to where everyone had been searching.
Days.
Sydney's our family.
Days since Sydney Sutherland went for a run and never came home. In just days, this community has been without the girl this crowd says was a friend to all. But instead of focusing on how she left this earth, they focus on what she left behind.
She didn't have to have recognition. She didn't have to be in the front. She didn't have to be recognized for anything that she did. She was just a silent servant.
She was a firecracker. She was sassy. She was loving. She was caring, compassionate.
From candle to candle and memory to memory, folks say tonight Sydney Sutherland was honored.
August 24th, 2020, just 5 days after Sydney Sutherland left her front door and never came back, Quake Llewellyn is arrested and booked into the Jackson County Jail. He is charged with capital murder, rape, kidnapping, and abuse of a corpse, for charges, each one carrying its own weight, each one representing a choice he made that afternoon on County Road 41. He pleads not guilty. His defense team requests a mental evaluation shortly after, framing it as being in their client's best interest. A state psychiatrist evaluates Llewellyn and reaches a clear conclusion. He fully understood the charges against him. He understood what was happening in that courtroom, and he was completely fit to stand trial. Then his attorneys attempt something that does not sit well with anyone who has followed this case. They describe what happened to Sydney Sutherland as a horrible accident. A horrible accident. Prosecutors reject that framing without hesitation and make their position absolutely clear. If this case goes to a jury, they will seek the death penalty. For almost a year, the legal process moves forward, motions filed, hearings scheduled, a community waiting for something that feels like justice while knowing that no verdict will ever fill the hole that was left behind. Then comes October 1st, 2021. For 108 days after Sydney never came home, Quake Llewellyn stands before the court and enters a guilty plea to capital murder and rape. No jury, no trial, no drawn-out proceedings that would force Sydney's family to sit through every detail of what happened to their daughter. His own attorney acknowledges that Llewellyn's family, from the very beginning, walked him into the sheriff's office and told him to tell the truth. They did not protect him. They did not make excuses for him. They sat him down and told him to own what he had done. A judge sentences Quake Llewellyn to life in prison, without the possibility of parole. He will never walk out of those doors. And on the day that sentence is handed down, the courtroom tells its own story without saying a single word. Every seat, filled with people dressed in pink, Sydney's favorite color, a sea of pink inside that courtroom, showing up for a young woman who showed up for everyone else her entire life. It is the kind of image that stays with you.
Tell me anything. What was Sydney doing? You know, did you see anything unusual? Did you meet anybody unusual? He goes, no, she was just running. I said, you don't have anything you can tell me? No, she was just running. And he just kind of gave me a little hug.
He gave you a hug?
Gave me a hug.
What did that feel like in that moment?
It was something felt odd. I walked back over to the group and I was like, something.
Before the sentence is handed down, Maggie Sutherland stands up, Sydney's mother. She has carried 408 days of grief, 408 days of unanswered questions, 408 days of waking up in a world where her daughter does not exist anymore. And in this moment she has one request. She asks Quake Llewellyn to look at her, and he does. He looks her in the eyes, and Maggie asks him the only question that has ever really mattered. Why couldn't you just pass her? Why couldn't you just pass my daughter? There is no answer that works. There is no explanation that makes sense. There is no combination of words that could ever justify what he took from that family, from that community, from this world. What you took from us 408 days ago, we will never get back. When Maggie walks out of that courtroom and faces the cameras waiting outside, she says something that cuts straight through everything. True justice for Sydney would be for her to be here. That is the truth that a life sentence cannot touch. The verdict is real. The accountability is real. But Sydney is still gone. And no courtroom in the world has a ruling for that. Sydney Sutherland went for a run on a familiar road, in a town where she knew everyone, on an ordinary Wednesday afternoon, and she never came back. Her case opened up a conversation that was already long overdue, about women who run alone, about the roads that should be safe but are not always, about the people we share our small towns and our social media feeds with, the people we think we know. She was found because hundreds of people refused to stop looking. She got justice because a killer's own family chose truth over blood. And she is remembered, not as a case number, not as a headline, not as a tragic story that trended for a week and disappeared. She is remembered in pink. In the words of the people who loved her most, probably the best part of what every human wants to be. Rest in peace, Sydney Claire Sutherland. You deserve so much more than what this world gave you at the end. And we will not forget you.